Remakers Mark, episode 56, All of Me. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Remakers Mark. Here we are discussing the 1984 comedy body inhabitation classic, I guess. I don't know what to call this movie. It's a weird one, but I'm excited about it. All of Me. With me, as always, are my friends Andy Wicks. Andy, how are you tonight? And if you had to share a body with someone, who would it be?
I am very well. Thank you for asking. I would choose to share a body with Harrison Ford.
Ooh.
He's had some fun adventures.
Sure.
I'd get to be Han Solo, Indiana Jones.
Yep.
Sounds like fun.
You could potentially prevent him from ever getting in an airplane again.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Like flying one.
That would be a good idea.
He's had a rough go.
Andy, so you're saying you would inhabit his body?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's kind of what I had in mind too, but whichever. If you wanted someone to inhabit your body.
I mean, I'm flattered that you think he'd want to share my body. But let's be honest. Come on. Yeah, I would inhabit his body.
What the hell's with this thing?
This sucks. I'm leaving.
Jeremy Nilsson, how are you tonight? And if you had to share with a body with someone, who would it be?
I'm wonderful, and I think I would choose Steve Martin.
Ooh.
Aww.
I mean,
topical and smart.
He seems to be living his best life right now.
True.
I would love to be able to play the banjo, so I think
Amen.
that's just a straight arrow right to being able to play the banjo really, really well. So I like it. Lee, excuse me. How are you tonight? And who would you share a body with?
I'm doing well, and maybe Superman. You didn't say it had to be a real person.
Go big or go home. Nice.
I mean, I said Han Solo and Indiana Jones, so I think it's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Mark Joesting, how about you? How are you, and what would your body sharing experience be?
I'm fine, thank you. And I think I would choose to share a body with prog rock guitar legend John Petrucci.
Ooh.
Because that would extremely juice my guitar work.
Excellent. On the downside, though, you would have to do a lot of hair care. So I feel like you gotta balance those out. Although maybe he has short hair now. I don't know. I haven't seen him since the cover of Images and Words, I don't think. So, yeah, either way. My name is Kyle. I will be your host once again this fine evening. And I'm going to say, for equally sexy and unsexy reasons, my wife. I just feel like, the more you know, right?
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's a weird answer, but I'm just being honest. Moving on, please. Tonight we are discussing All of Me. I don't know what's going on. I've completely lost my place. Hold on. I got to get my bearings about me. Whew.
We are in a pandemic, and we've all been quarantined for a very long time.
It's true. Everything's crazy.
I don't recognize people when I see their entire face now. It's very strange. It seems jarring to me.
Yes, it is weird. Oh, God. Are you smiling? Are you smiling? You're smiling. No, you're not. You're smiling? Nope. Not smiling. Oh, smiling. Okay, got it. Cool. Thank you. Lee, this was your pick, and we are going to go on to the Remakers Mark Recommends section. What is your recommendation this fine evening?
Mine might be a little, I don't know if it's a little obvious, but anybody who's been watching Netflix lately has probably seen that there's a #1 film on Netflix right now, and it's called The Wrong Missy. I watched it the other day, and it is hilarious, starring David Spade and Lauren Lapkus, who I'm a big fan of. I know that not everybody on this podcast is, but I think it's really, really funny. It's it's a formulaic comedy. You kind of know what's going to happen, but it's very entertaining nonetheless. So I would recommend giving it a watch if you're looking for something really funny.
Right on. I saw it on the little marquee on Netflix while scrolling around the other day, but I didn't really dig into it. So good to know. I think it's a lot of reason why people are like rewatching The Office or rewatching Community or Parks and Rec or Friends or whatever right now, where it's just like, good Lord, give me something like brainless and comfy. It's you need to not freak out.
That you have a lot of episodes of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Good share. Andy, as our Sumerian in chief here, would you mind giving a summary of All of Me for our listeners and then talk about our history with it, please?
Bow to me, the chief Sumerian.
Okay.
Oh, Sumerian. My bad.
That worked?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not Gozer.
That you know of.
Oh, wait, that's a Gozerian.
Oh, sorry, I chose the form of Andy.
No, you didn't. You said John Petrucci. That's different. You had your chance.
I am John Petrucci. All of Me is a 1984 comedy starring Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin and directed by Carl Reiner. Martin plays Roger Cobb, a lawyer/jazz guitarist who has ideals of fighting the noble fight, but is paying his dues in a big law firm. Tomlin plays Edwina Cutwater, a filthy rich lady who is about to die and plans to transmit her soul to the body of a young woman. Can you guess what happens? That's right. Hilarity ensues.
And how?
I was going to guess that.
You know, Andy, I'm excited for the day when we do something like Schindler's List. And you have to try to work in hilarity ensues in the description. Because that's just really going to be stretching yourself. But I'm ready for it.
It's going to happen. Lee, this was your pick. Please tell us why you chose it.
Well, I was a big fan of Steve Martin. I have been most of my life. The very first thing I ever saw him in was The Jerk. And I think this may be only the second thing I ever saw him in because I was quite young when I saw both of them. And this is one of those movies that I really liked initially and watched many, many times and was always entertained by. And to me, it's something that is kind of held up over the years because I like it now for different reasons. I understand all the kind of adult themes that go on in the movie, but I also understand, or I appreciate just how good Steve Martin's performance is in it. So I thought it would be a nice, fun 80s comedy that we haven't done in a while. So that's why I picked it.
Nice. That can't go wrong with that reason.
Lee, I also had fond memories of this movie and had always pictured this as thinking of the perfect example of Steve Martin's physical comedy. This one was it.
Yeah.
I kind of love that you can't just say the movie where Steve Martin like sort of had the body or the brain of another person, because that could be multiple movies, which I think is amazing. There's that in The Man with Two Brains, like that, admittedly a little bit different, but just like what a weird ass niche. And just he found it. He just got right in there. And I just love that, which is pretty much summarizing the 80s.
Didn't he do those two back to back?
Oh, was it? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Pretty close.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I like that this is one of those stories that there's something very mysterious and sort of unexplained happening in, real life, I guess, kind of like Groundhog Day, or I'm blanking on some of the other ones, but like there's, the story takes place in what just looks like the real world, but it's this one thing that's just very weird and unexplained. And that's one thing that I kind of appreciate about this kind of story.
Very good. Well, thank you, Andy and Lee. Let's move on to our recasting as we do in the first part of each episode. We are going to be recasting the 2 major roles and 5 minor roles. The first role is that of Edwina. Mark, tell us about Edwina.
Certainly. Edwina Cutwater is a wealthy heiress who has spent her entire life sick in bed. Sick from what? We are not sure, but it does not seem to bother her much, given her grand plans to commute her soul to another vessel upon death. She has an agreeable new host chosen, and a guru on hand to perform the ritual and everything. What could go wrong?
Hilarity ensues.
She was originally played by Lily Tomlin, beautifully in my opinion. I really like Tomlin's performance. She is dramatic without being dour or grim. She is whimsical without being hyperactive about it. She just has this way about her that I think is very unique and is apparently hard for me to describe. So my pick for Edwina Cutwater is Bill Hader and I want him to play it exactly as Lily Tomlin did.
Note for note.
Oh boy, I can't wait for the rest of your cast.
I love it. Bill Hader was suggested by Kate for Roger when I was talking with her about it. So you done flipped it for real.
I think his name was mentioned by several different people too. So
yeah,
I could see Bill Hader playing both roles.
Excellent choice.
That would be something.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick him
Bill
again.
with a wig and Bill without. That's awesome, Mark. I love it.
All right, thank you.
And would he be Edwina? Like, is that, or would he be Edwin? And then the other would be, I don't know, Rogera? I don't know. However you want to do it.
I think he could be Edwin. That's fine with me.
Cool. I like it. That's awesome.
Lee, is that fine with you?
That works for me. I'd be interested to see that, but yeah. So my pick, I did not flip it, but I was thinking of, in deference to Lily Tomlin's performance, I chose Charlize Theron because I think she has the same level of grace that Lily Tomlin had in this role. And I wanted that, and I wanted her to be convincingly cold in the beginning, but somebody that the audience warms up to as the story goes on. And I think she could do that very well. So, yeah, Charlize Theron, I could totally see her winding up as the good guy at the end.
Do you imagine that she would be goofy in this performance? Like, how comedic do you want her to go?
I don't think she needs to be that comedic. I mean, Lily Tomlin is almost playing the straight person.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's a need for that.
And Charlize Theron certainly has the capability of going very comedic if she wants to.
Yeah.
She's done it.
Has anybody seen Long Shot with her and Seth Rogen?
Didn't get around to see that one.
Not yet.
That was pretty funny. I'd recommend it. It's I had very little expectations, and it was really funny. Her especially. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah. So yeah. But let's hear who Kyle has.
Yeah, so I liked Lily Tomlin's original performance. I thought it was like really low key in a way that I couldn't decide if she was half-assing it or if that was just her being low key. I don't think she was actually half-assing it because she's incredibly talented, but it was like a very... Okay, so the first part of the movie, she is herself, and then the second part of that, she occasionally shows up in mirrors. So she doesn't have a lot of opportunity to really emote aside from voice, and I thought the voice was very plain. You know what I mean? It wasn't affected, it wasn't weird, and that's what she decided to do, and that's fine. I decided I wanted a little more, if you will, crazy in my Edwina. I wanted you to believe that she would make this choice to do that. And I wanted to be there I want there to be a legitimate fear from Roger to having Edwina in his body, not just an annoyance, really kind of that cut loose thing. So I chose Aubrey Plaza for this. I thought that she would just like be able to just cut loose and just be a weird person who you would 100% believe that she was going to have this idea to have her soul transported to another body, and you wouldn't doubt it in a second. You know what I mean? It's not just like a wealthy heiress kind of, or a wealthy individual. It's that, and she's just off her rocker. And so I think Aubrey Plaza can do that better than anybody. So I thought that would be a lot of fun.
I think she has done that better than anybody.
Yeah, that was kind of Legion, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in Legion.
She's fantastic in Legion. I ate up every second of her performance.
Yeah. Yep. That was definitely a marking point for me. So, yeah. So Aubrey Plaza for my crazier Edwina Cutwater. Jer, who is your choice for Edwina?
Well, I liked Lily Tomlin's performance in this, even though I'm not a big Lily Tomlin fan, all the way back to her Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In days. I could take her or leave her, but she did a really good job with a very, like you said, an understated role in the movie that is largely voiceover and shots of her in a mirror and whatnot. But I like that she didn't try to go overboard with it. And so I wanted somebody that was going to both feel a little bit more like a over the top rich heiress that was just like flamboyantly rich, and feels like they have never had to want for anything besides being bedridden. And so I went with somebody British because that's what we think of when we think of rich. And I wanted somebody a little bit older because I wanted somebody that was towards the end of their at the end of their life, and kind of all of these feelings of regret of not having done all of these things. And I wanted somebody that was going to bring a little bit more energy into the moments when they are able to be on screen. And so I chose Tracy Ullman.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That is so good. That is so good.
If you look at pictures of her now, she is a beautiful. She looks elegant, and she looks like she could just be this heiress. And I think that her personality matched up with whoever the lead is would just knock it out of the park. She's so much fun, and she's so she has such an interesting and unique energy that it wouldn't surprise me at all if Tracy Ullman as a human being has already tried to figure out if she could move her soul into somebody else.
I mean, I totally see that too.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, Jer. I love that pick.
That's it. Who we got left? Andy?
That would be me.
Go.
I did not choose Tracy Ullman. I am a little bit envious of that pick, but I'm very happy with mine. I chose Kristen Wiig for Edwina Cutwater.
Nice.
I also want Lily Tomlin's performance was pretty good. I mean, I liked it a lot. Not my favorite performance of the movie, but certainly I didn't think it was a bad performance. But I want this one to be a little just amplified a little bit. This is one of the moments when we always fear in a remake that all they do is just crank up the gain and make everything bigger, louder, things like that. But this is one instance where I want that, especially in the beginning. Just the first and second act, I think, need to be a little ramped up to make the third act feel a little more impactful. I miss seeing Kristen Wiig in movies, and I want to see her in another one. And I also am excited to pair her with my pick for Roger. So, Kristen Wiig.
I like that. That feels like a very natural fit. Excellent. So for the role of Edwina Cutwater, originally played by Lily Tomlin, Mark went with Bill Hader, Lee went with Charlize Theron, I went with Aubrey Plaza, Jer went with Tracy Ullman, and Andy went with Kristen Wiig. On to our second major role, that being Roger Cobb. Lee, tell us about Roger.
Roger is an unhappy associate at a law firm owned by his girlfriend's womanizing father and a part-time jazz musician. Having been assigned the Edwina Cutwater account under the promises of being made partner, he finds himself connected to her in the worst possible way. This was the first one that I cast, and it was almost immediate that I thought of it because of the actor's previous roles that I'm most familiar with. So I went with Joel McHale. I very much see him.
That's a good pick.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying?
I just laughed. That's great.
Oh, yeah. I very much see him doing the physical comedy very well, especially like in some of his other roles. He's very put together, and he's very graceful, I guess, until his character starts to panic, and that's when you see the sort of manic physical comedy come out of him, and that's when he's funniest, I think. So Joel McHale for Roger Cobb.
Nice. I think he would do the irritated and impatient really, really well.
Oh yeah, and the jaded.
Yes.
And the blustery lawyer.
Yes.
Yes.
But let's move on to Kyle.
Yeah, so I wanted someone that had kind of the energy that Steve Martin had, which is wholly unique, but I really wanted somebody that would just bring something just a little bit different, not drastically different, but just a little bit different. Someone that was very kind of bendy and was very willing to be goofy and weird and really take it to where the role needed to go. And I decided to do kind of a double whammy. I decided to cast Taika Waititi, and I decided to have him direct it as well.
Oh.
The major inspiration for this was him in Jojo Rabbit, where he plays Hitler, which, you know, normally that's not, you wouldn't equate that with bendy and goofy, but boy, howdy is his Hitler bendy and goofy. It is a very interesting movie with a very interesting performance by him. And I really think that he would be exceptional. I thought Aubrey Plaza inhabiting Taika Waititi is just like a recipe for magic. That was really what it came down to. So yeah, Taika Waititi was my guy.
Very nice.
Thank you. It should be very interesting. I really like, from a direction standpoint too, I feel like he would be willing to embrace the absurdity of the original and just like run with it. So I feel like he would do well with that. You don't have to take that into account with the casting choice, but I figure, what the hell? Why not? Actor, director. Jer, on to you. Who is your Roger?
I cast my Roger so I saw this for the first time for this podcast.
Me too.
And as I was watching it, I cast my Roger in the midst of watching it. But holy cow, is Steve Martin just outstanding in this as the original Roger. I said at the end of it when we got done watching it that he somehow was playing the straight man and not the straight man at the same time. Like, his body was the comedy and his face was the straight man.
Mm-hmm. Half of him was the straight man and half of him was not.
It was absurd how good he was at that. And so it made me think of a couple different things, but I chose Paul Rudd. And one of the reasons that I chose Paul Rudd is that we had just watched a series on Netflix called Living with Yourself, where Paul Rudd plays two different versions of himself, sort of his normal schlubby self that's kind of beat down by life, and then his better self. He goes into this like new age clinic and they make him better, but it turns out they cloned him while removing some of all of these bad traits. So it's like him, but better. And so he's playing both of those two roles simultaneously, because he was supposed to have died, but he didn't die. And so he came back, and now there's two of them. It's a really, really good show. And then that made me think of him in the second Ant-Man movie, where he is inhabited by Hank Pym's wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, who comes.
That's a great scene.
Yeah, and he does it perfectly. Like, he just becomes her for a little while. So he's got the ability to bring out these different personalities in himself. And he's also just such a, for lack of a better word, just like a rubbery guy. Like, he is that Steve Martin school of just like, he's willing to make his body look weird for comedy. And I think that he would just do great. He's got that same sincerity that Steve Martin has, and that same sort of goofy charm, and you believe him as a real person, but he's also just doing these absurdly weird things.
That's a great pick. I love that. There was a lot of love for Paul Rudd in the feedback that I got, so we'll hear that more in part two.
Same
but
here.
Yes, super great.
I almost didn't pick him because so many people were picking him, but I saw him as I watched the movie. I was like, I can't pick somebody else. So, well,
especially talking about the Ant-Man and Wasp thing, I completely forgot about that scene, and you were right. That is an incredibly good scene, and it's like moving too. It's not you kind of chuckle at first when you're like, okay, he's playing Michelle Pfeiffer, but then you're like, damn, he's being Michelle Pfeiffer. Like, it was really good.
The part of that scene that always gets me is at the end, and they kind of play it as a joke for a punchline, but him and Hank Pym holding hands, like they just unconsciously they're holding hands and not talking about it, not acknowledging it. That just they were so connected to each other that they unconsciously started holding hands.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Anyway, Andy, next.
So you talked about getting someone who was bendy, and I forget the other adjectives you used, but bendy stuck out in my head. which I think describes my pick very well. I went with Keegan-Michael Key for the role of Roger Cobb.
Very nice.
Very bendy. Yes.
He is, for those of you who may not be familiar with Mr. Key, he was half of Key and Peele. If you are unfamiliar with Key and Peele, please look them up and their sketch comedy shows. And just look up East-West Bowl and have a good time.
Substitute teacher.
Substitute teacher. Oh my goodness. We could just go off and on for minutes. Keegan-Michael Key, though, I think is an incredibly talented comedic actor, but also can play the combination of kind of straight and the opposite of the straight man. Blanking on whatever term that might be.
I was wondering that too, and I don't know what it
maybe
is.
I'm not blanking. Maybe I just don't know what it is.
I would say like the jokester, but that's more like literature. But
Well, you got the straight man, then we'll call him the Bendyman.
Hey, there you go.
Makes sense. He can play both, I feel. And I really I keyed in on this, pun unintended, because of the way that Steve Martin, literally had to play different halves of his body in different ways. That physicality of the role, I feel like I've seen Keegan-Michael Key do already, and I find it incredibly funny. So I want him to do it here. I could see him as a lawyer. I could see him as a jazz guitarist. And I like the pair of him with Kristen Wiig. I think that the sparks could fly in terms of how when the two characters first meet, he's very unimpressed and kind of put off by her attitudes and things like this. And then they kind of warm up to each other. So I like that pairing. So Keegan-Michael Key is my choice.
That's a really good pick, Andy. I like that.
Thank you. And now, Mark, a bounce pass of the conch shell to you.
Oh, I dropped it.
Ah, man.
I'm amazed it bounced.
Yeah. It's because everything is rubbery today. So I, too, wanted to find a Bendyman, a Bendyman. And
are you looking for a Bendyman, sir?
Sorry, I had nothing for that joke. I'm sorry, Andy.
Don't qualify it by calling it a joke. It's kind of unnecessary.
So, I just really wanted to find an actor who is really just a master of physical comedy, and can use their body in really, really funny ways, as we've established for a lot of actors in the last few minutes. So I wanted to find a Bendyman, and then I stopped looking for a Bendyman because I picked Kristen Wiig.
Nice. So there's a very real chance of a Kristen Wiig double feature here, which is great.
Yes,
I'd watch it.
That makes good sense. I like it, especially with the Bill Hader pick. That's top notch.
Yep, Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig.
That's funny.
Good call. So for the role of Roger Cobb, originally played brilliantly by Steve Martin, Lee went with Joel McHale. I went with Taika Waititi. Jer went with Paul Rudd. Andy went with Keegan-Michael Key. And Mark went with Kristen Wiig. Now, onto the minor characters, the first of which is Margot. Jer, tell us about Margot and who you picked.
If it's an 80s movie and there's an office, it's a safe bet you're about to meet the gruff but lovable oddball secretary. Margot is as 80s movie secretary as it gets, and I'm willing to bet she takes liberal smoke breaks. Margot was played by Selma Diamond, who I'm sure played mostly this exact same role, and she did it quite well. And I wanted to basically just keep her vibe alive, and so I chose an actress by the name of Helen Slayton Hughes, who you probably would know best as Ethel Beavers from Parks and Recreation.
Perfect.
If you haven't seen her as Ethel Beavers in Parks and Recreation, you probably haven't seen her in much of anything. But she's the court reporter that has a kind of an ongoing role. She keeps getting pulled into weird and random schemes and scams and whatnot. And she is basically the exact same character. She's got hilarious timing and she's great.
Agreed.
Nice. I like it.
And apparently Peter Dinklage is her first cousin.
I just saw that. That's very interesting.
I just saw that as well.
Who knew?
But that's my pick. And now we're moving on to Kyle.
Thank you. So I will be talking about Tyrone Wattell, originally played by Jason Bernard. Tyrone is a blind jazz musician because it's an absurd 80s movie, and of course he is. The character is written nowhere near as good as it could be, nor as bad as it might have been. That said, he was played just fine by that guy, Jason Bernard, and played a surprisingly large part in moving the plot along. I thought Jason Bernard was fine. I thought it was completely absurd that he was a blind jazz musician, but whatever. I thought it was absurd that Steve Martin was a jazz musician, but then he played guitar, like for real, and we'll talk about that in part
Wait,
two.
are you saying that jazz musicians can't be blind?
No, I just feel like, it's just kind of one of those like roll the 20-sided die of character elements, and they're like, ooh, make him blind. Okay. So, or maybe Jason Bernard was like, I've always wanted to play a blind guy, and they're like, all right, whatever.
You got to admit,
Doesn't matter.
you got to admit that, oh my God, I'm white joke at the beginning was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Yes, that was good.
I do appreciate how readily he just went along with everything, too.
Yes. Andy, with that joke in mind, I think you will appreciate my recasting choice for this. I decided to go full ensemble and choose the Blind Boys of Alabama for this. Let's just go all the way.
All of them?
And all of them, yeah, the 5 Blind Boys from Alabama. Let's just like cast the whole dang ensemble, and let's just have them be this vocal group that maybe has a backing band that Roger Cobb is a part of, and is, they just kind of hang out, I guess. I don't know. I just wanted to have like actual blind musicians, and I thought, you know what? Let's get the Blind Boys of Alabama in here.
I mean, if you're going to do it, be authentic.
That's right. Exactly. I decided to just go for it.
It would make the funeral scene very different, but very interesting. I mean, I really liked like the New Orleans jazz band element to it, but to do the Blind Boys of Alabama doing a funeral.
Yeah, they would raise the roof if there was a roof to be raised. Yes, for
And
sure.
I'm just imagining the scene of all of them sneaking around the mansion. Like instead of 2 people, it's like 7 now.
Edwina is somehow been interposed into all of their bodies at one point. That would be fun to watch.
Yeah. Maybe it'll get narrowed down to just one Blind Boy of Alabama, but yes, I do think that would be extraordinarily funny. All right, so that's my choice for Tyrone. On to Prakalasa. Mark, tell us about Praka.
Okay. Prakalasa is the very foreign, very non-English speaking person originally played by a guy named Richard. He is the guru of that one spiritual practice. The one which will shepherd Edwina's soul to a new body. Like many of us, he is fascinated by toilets.
Who isn't?
Seriously.
Yeah, many of us.
Oh, boy.
I did like this character a lot.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so bad, but so good. I agree.
Yes, it's right in the pocket of 80s, kind of racist, but pretty funny.
Hilariously problematic.
Yes.
There's our title.
and even considering mild racism in the character portrayal, I chose not to do anything differently.
Okay.
So I figure you just need a guy who looks vaguely Indian and and can be pretty goofy. And so I picked Jason Mantzoukas.
Nice. That is
Dang it.
perfect.
Oh, that is so good.
Thank you.
That is so good.
Oh, God. He would be such an angry guru.
Yes.
That's a different energy, and I love it.
He looks like the son of Richard Libertini.
Yeah, kind of.
Richard Libertini being the man who originally played Prakalasa.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't
Sorry,
say
yes.
that, but yes.
You
For
said
our
Richard.
listeners.
And also Fletch's ex-wife's lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Andy, give me some of that Burton Schuyler.
Oh, here it come. Burton Schuyler, originally played by Dana Elcar, is the boss at Roger Cobb's law firm, a mentor to Cobb, and a philanderer. He considers himself the Don Juan to recent widows. Burton has dangled the opportunity for a partnership if Cobb can deftly handle his divorce case. Kyle,
Well
see
done,
what I
Andy.
did there. Thank you.
Yes, I did. I read it earlier, and I had it was everything to not bust out laughing.
This role was it was fine. Dana Elkar plays again, going back to the kind of tropes of mid 80s comedy of the boss. Yeah, he's the boss, but he's kind of a boring character. I wanted to spice things up a little bit, so I chose Patrick Stewart. I don't know why I said it in that accent, because he's not vaguely Scottish like that accent was.
Sean Connery introducing Patrick Stewart. And go.
Patrick Stewart is going to play Burton Schuyler, and he's going to bring some gravitas to this role, and I still think it'll be quite funny. Yeah, Patrick Stewart, because he's a national treasure, even
because
if he's not
why
American.
not?
Have you guys during this quarantine time in our lives, Patrick Stewart has been doing a Shakespearean sonnet a day on his Instagram account.
Ooh.
And it is a breath of life. It is amazing to watch him do it.
I will have to go back and watch those.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's not
And
Shakespeare, but CBS All Access had a free month, and so I watched Picard and rather
Was it
enjoyed
good?
It was good. Yeah, it was solid. It's better than most of the movies because it has a chance to breathe. It feels really new. He's really good. Everybody around him is really good. Good cast and everything. So
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, there's
I
a
just
second
saw,
season in the works, I think, for that one, right?
Yeah. I would say if you wanted to, even if you did $5 for a month or something, I think it would be worth it for Picard.
I just saw a news article that David Tennant and Patrick Stewart and several other people are answering questions of Shakespeare or British literature students, like college students, can ask questions to the Shakespeare, whatever the main playhouse is in England, and David Tennant and Patrick Stewart and others will answer their questions on I think on their website or on their Instagram account or something. So they'll videotape themselves answering questions about Shakespeare to college students.
Nice.
That's
That is
fantastic.
awesome.
That's great. Love it.
Lee, tell us of Terry Hoskins.
Originally played by Victoria Tennant, formerly Mrs. Steve Martin. Terry is the spoiled daughter of Edwina's stable hand. I think his name is Fred. She agrees to the transfer of Edwina's soul into her body as a seemingly benevolent act. However, when she sees that the transfer worked out but with the wrong person, she quickly reveals her true intentions of just wanting to get her hands on Edwina's estate. This was almost a major character, I think we were talking about initially, because she has a lot to do in the movie and she's involved in a lot of the main plot points. But I wanted someone who could portray as having had a shady past, but is very much putting on the facade of someone who's, I guess, trying to get away from all of that. So I picked Kristen Ritter, who I think lately people would probably know from Jessica Jones. But she was also in a very funny sitcom called Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23 on ABC a few years ago. And she's very funny and deadly serious at the same time. So I really liked her for this role.
Nice.
Thoughts?
I have a hard time detaching from Jessica Jones just because it's such a present character, and I haven't seen her in anything else. I don't think I haven't seen that show. But I think I could get there. I think she, especially when it gets into the manipulative Terry, I think that's right on.
Yeah. And she's very funny in that sitcom. It was very short-lived, but it was good.
Right on. So that wraps up the minor characters. And with that, this first part of our discussion of All of Me. In a couple of weeks, we will have part 2 where we'll talk about the plot, tech, and filmmaking changes we would like to make to the movie, casting feedback, and what we enjoyed about the movie and its performances and everything along those lines. So stay tuned for that a couple of weeks down the road. Remakers Mark is a proud member of the Math is Hard Network. To find out more information about this podcast or any other podcast on the network, check us out at mathishard.net. There you will find show notes with links to all of the people, movies, and links discussed in this episode. This information is also attached to the show file in the podcast client of your choice. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Spotify, and iTunes, where you can rate and review Remakers Mark, which would mean the world to us. And now we are going to have episodes published on YouTube as well. So we'll have a link to that on our page. Otherwise, just do a search for Remakers Mark on YouTube, and you will find us there with all of our episodes. We are on both Facebook, search for Mathis Hardnet or Remakers Mark, Twitter, @Remakers Mark, and Instagram, @Remakers Mark Podcast. So please join in the discussion there as well. So, gents, that was a great time. I think a fitting discussion of such a fun and interesting movie. I look forward to part 2 where we dive into this a bit more. In the meantime, I think we're pretty safe from soul-carrying bowls falling on our heads given the pandemic. But just in case, maybe have an umbrella at the hand or a helmet or something like that just in case. But if you don't happen to have one, just do your best and let us know if you need a hand. Until the next time that we hang out, may the Force be with you.
And also with you.